The desert around Vegas is a different kind of quiet at night. Not peaceful, you know? It's a loaded silence, like it's holding its breath. I'm Alice, an industrial engineer, and that night I was on graveyard shift, doing a final maintenance check at a remote lithium mine. The main crew had clocked out hours ago. It was just me, the hum of the generators, and a million stars you can only see when you're that far from the city's glare. The shift started normally. I was walking the perimeter, checking the sensor arrays along the fence line. It's a vast, sprawling operation, acres of machinery, and excavated earth under the cold moonlight. That's when I heard it first, a sound that didn't belong. It was a cough. A dry, racking cough, like someone with a bad chest cold. I stopped, my flashlight beam cutting a sharp cone through the darkness. "Hello?" I called out. "Security? Is someone there?" Only the wind answered, whistling through the steel girders of the processing plant. I shrugged it off. Sound travels weird in the desert. Could be a coyote, an echo from miles away. I continued my rounds, heading towards the primary crusher, a monstrous piece of equipment that sat silent and imposing in the dark. As I got closer, I heard it again. The cough. But this time, it was followed by a soft, wet shuffling sound. It was coming from the far side of the crusher, in the deep shadows where my light couldn't quite reach. My heart started thumping a steady, heavy rhythm against my ribs. Protocol was clear: report any unauthorized presence. I pulled out my radio. "Base, this is Alice. I've got a possible trespasser near the primary crusher. Over." Static hissed back. "Alice, this is Base. Copy that. Can you get a visual?" "We're not picking up anything on the cameras. Over." I took a deep breath. "Negative, Base. They're in a blind spot. I'm going to take a look. Proceeding with caution. Over." I walked slowly, my steel-toed boots crunching on the gravel. Every instinct was screaming at me to get back in my truck and drive away. But the engineer in me, the one who needs to solve problems, kept pushing me forward. As I rounded the massive steel base of the crusher, my flashlight beam fell on something. It wasn't a person. Crouched on the ground was a coyote, but it was wrong. All wrong. It was too big, for one thing, with long, gangly limbs that seemed stretched out of proportion. Its fur was patchy, and its back was arched at an unnatural angle. It was coughing, that same dry, human-like cough, and its body convulsed with each spasm. It didn't seem to notice my light. It was focused on something on the ground. I crept closer, my curiosity overriding my fear. It was gnawing on a thick power cable. Not just chewing it, but stripping it. With an eerie precision. It used its teeth to peel back the thick rubber insulation, then licked at the copper wires within. A shiver that had nothing to do with the night air snaked up my spine. Coyotes don't do that. No animal does that. Then it looked up. Its eyes caught my light, and they glowed with a terrifying, intelligent green. It wasn't the reflective shine of an animal's eyes. This was different. It was like looking into the eyes of a person filled with an ancient, chilling malice. It stopped coughing. It stopped chewing the cable. It just stared at me, and then it spoke. In a voice that was a perfect imitation of my supervisor, Dave. "Alice," it rasped. Dave's friendly baritone corrupted into something dry and dusty. "Everything all right out here?" I froze. My blood turned to ice water in my veins. My mind was scrambling, trying to process what was happening. How could it know my name? How could it know Dave's voice? I hadn't used my name on the radio, just my call sign. My hand trembled as I lifted the radio to my mouth. "Base," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Base, do you copy?" The thing on the ground tilted its head, a sickeningly human gesture. "No one's coming, Alice," it said, still in Dave's voice. Then the voice changed, shifting seamlessly into the smooth, professional tone of the dispatcher who'd answered my call just minutes before. "We're not picking up anything on the cameras, Alice. Over." My breath hitched in my throat. It was replaying my radio conversation. I started backing away slowly, one step at a time. My flashlight beam was shaking violently. The coyote thing pushed itself up. Its joints cracked and popped, and it stood on its hind legs. It wasn't a coyote anymore. It was tall and painfully thin, its form shifting and stretching in the darkness like a nightmare trying to take shape. Its arms were too long, its fingers ending in dirty, broken claws. Its face was a blur of shadows and sharp angles, but those two green eyes were locked on me. It took a step towards me, its movements jerky and unnatural. It opened its mouth, and this time, the sound that came out was my own voice, a perfect, terrifying echo. Proceeding with caution, over. That broke the spell. I turned and ran. I didn't care about protocol, about the report, about anything. I just ran. I could hear it behind me, its loping, uneven footsteps crunching on the gravel, keeping pace with me effortlessly. It wasn't chasing me to catch me, it was toying with me. It started making noises, the sound of a baby crying, the scream of a woman, a man laughing, low and cruel. Each sound was designed to break me, to fill me with terror. I scrambled into my truck, fumbling with the keys. My hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries to get the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life. As I slammed the truck into drive, I looked into the rearview mirror. It was standing right behind the truck, bathed in the red glow of my taillights. For a split second, its face resolved into something almost human, twisted in a horrifying grin. And then it was gone. I drove like a madwoman, flooring it all the way back to the main office, never once looking back. I burst into the control room, babbling about what I'd seen. Dave and the night crew looked at me like I was crazy. They reviewed the camera footage. There was nothing. No animal, no person. Just me, walking the perimeter and then sprinting back to my truck for no apparent reason. They put me on paid leave. Said I was suffering from stress and exhaustion. But I know what I saw. I resigned the next week. I couldn't go back there. I couldn't be out in that loaded silence again. Sometimes late at night when the house is quiet, I can still hear it, that dry, racking cough. And sometimes in the dark, I hear a familiar voice, my husband's voice, my mother's voice calling my name from just outside the window. I know it's not real, but I still lock the doors and turn on every light in the house. The desert has secrets, ancient and hungry, and I was foolish enough to stumble upon one of them. And it remembers my name. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've had a similar experience or just want to hear more chilling tales, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Stay safe out there. The old Argyle station wasn't much more than a wooden shack and a wind-whipped platform, a lonely stop in the vast snowy wilderness. It was my job to monitor its security feed from a cozy office 50 miles away. Mostly, I watched snow pile up and hoped the cameras wouldn't freeze over. But on the 3rd night of the worst blizzard in a decade, something else appeared. The storm had shut everything down. No trains had run for days. The roads were impassable. Yet on the grainy black and white feed, a figure materialized on the platform. It was tall, impossibly thin, its limbs long and spidery like bent branches. It just appeared as if the swirling snow itself had woven it into existence. My first thought was a stranded traveler, a terrible thought given the minus 30-degree temperature. I tried the station's PA system, my voice crackling through the speakers out there in the gale. Hello, this is dispatch. The station is closed. No trains are running. Are you all right? There was no response. The figure didn't even flinch. It just began to pace. Back and forth, from one end of the short platform to the other. Its movements were jerky, unnatural. It was barefoot in the deep snow, wearing what looked like tattered rags that whipped around its skeletal frame. but it didn't seem to feel the cold. I zoomed in as close as the old camera would allow. The face was a blur of shadows, but I could make out a long, gaunt head. There was something disturbing about its posture, hunched and predatory. Hours crawled by. The storm raged, and the figure paced. It never stopped, never slowed. Its relentless, rhythmic movement was hypnotic, a pendulum counting down to something awful. I started feeling a deep, gnawing unease, a cold that had nothing to do with the weather. It was a primal fear, the kind you feel when you know you're being watched by something that isn't human. I called my supervisor, my voice trembling. "Sir, you need to see this. There's someone at Argyle." He logged in from his home, his voice tired over the phone. "Probably just a glitch, son. Snow's playing tricks on the sensor." Then he went quiet. I heard a sharp intake of breath. What in God's name is that? We watched together, two men miles apart, united by a silent, growing dread. We checked every log, every system. No one had entered the station. No tracks led to it through the pristine, deep snow, except for the ones the creature was now making on the platform. The wind howled through my phone's speaker, a ghostly symphony to the thing's dreadful ballet. Then it stopped. Right in the middle of the platform, directly facing the camera, it slowly lifted its head. The camera quality was poor, but I didn't need high definition to see the 2 points of faint dark emptiness where eyes should have been. It felt like it was looking right through the lens, right through the 50 miles of frozen forests, right into my soul. A hollow, cavernous hunger seemed to radiate from the screen, a chilling emptiness that promised nothing but an endless winter. "Is it looking at us?" My supervisor whispered, his voice barely audible. I couldn't answer. My throat was tight with fear. The figure raised one long, twig-like arm and pointed. Not at the camera, but up towards the sky. We both stared, utterly mystified. Then it began to change. Its form seemed to shimmer and stretch, its limbs elongating even further, the rags around it dissolving into the swirling snow. It grew taller, its head nearly scraping the station's overhang, its body becoming less solid, more like a column of wind and shadow and malice. The PA speaker at the station crackled to life on its own. It wasn't my voice this time. It was a sound that will haunt me until the day I die. It was a low, scraping whisper, like dry leaves skittering across ice, but it formed a word, a name, my name. The sound was layered, ancient, filled with the echoes of 1,000 lonely winters and insatiable, desperate hunger. My blood ran cold. My supervisor screamed over the phone, "Shut it down. Kill the feed." My hands shook as I fumbled with the mouse. The figure on the screen began to contort, its shape twisting impossibly. It was no longer pacing. It was writhing, a silhouette of pure agony and rage against the white canvas of the storm. Just before I clicked the button to shut down the remote server, it lunged towards the camera. For a split second, its face filled the screen. It wasn't a face at all. It was a hollowed-out mask of bone and shadow, a gaping maw that seemed to stretch into an abyss, a scream frozen in time. The last thing I saw was that bottomless mouth, rushing forward to swallow the world. The feed went black. The line with my supervisor was dead. I sat there in the humming silence of my office, the only light coming from my blank monitor. The storm outside my own window suddenly seemed much more menacing. I couldn't shake the feeling that the thing from the station wasn't gone. It had seen me. It had spoken my name. I felt a profound, unshakable cold settle deep inside my bones, a cold that no fire could ever warm. The next day, a rescue team finally made it to Argyle Station. They found nothing. No footprints in the snow except for a single deep set of tracks that started in the middle of the platform and ended abruptly at the edge. The camera it had lunged at was shattered, the lens frosted over with a strange, web-like pattern of ice, even though the other cameras were fine. I quit my job the following week. I moved as far south as I could, away from the snow and the pines and the crushing silence of the North Woods. But sometimes, on cold nights, when the wind whistles just right, I hear it, that dry, scraping whisper. And I know, deep in my soul, that the thing from the snowbound station is still out there, pacing and waiting. And it remembers my name. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next descent into the shadows. My name is Rachel, and what I'm about to tell you happened just last year. I still wake up screaming sometimes. It was a cold November night, and I was staying over at my boyfriend Alex's house. His parents were out of town, so we had the place to ourselves. We were watching a movie in his upstairs bedroom when I realized I'd left my phone charging downstairs in the living room. I told Alex I'd be right back and quietly made my way down the stairs. The house was old, the kind that creaks and groans with every step, but tonight the silence felt different. It was heavy, oppressive. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, a sliver of moonlight cut through the living room window, illuminating a shape that wasn't there before. A figure was standing in the middle of the room, perfectly still, its back to me. My heart leaped into my throat. At first, I thought it was Alex's dad. Maybe he'd come home early. I was about to call out his name, but I froze. Something was terribly wrong. The figure was too tall, too thin. Its limbs were unnaturally long, bent at angles that didn't seem humanly possible. It was wearing what looked like Alex's dad's favorite flannel shirt, but it hung off its gaunt frame like a scarecrow's rags. I stayed hidden in the shadows of the staircase, my breath caught in my chest. The figure slowly, deliberately turned its head. It wasn't a full turn, just enough for me to see its profile in the dim light. The face, it wasn't human. It was long and narrow, like an animal's snout, but stretched and distorted into a grotesque mockery of a human face. Its eyes glowed with a faint, predatory light, scanning the room. I felt a primal fear, a terror so absolute it rooted me to the spot. This thing wasn't an intruder. It was something else entirely, something ancient and malevolent. Then it started to move. It didn't walk, it sort of unfolded itself, its joints cracking and popping with a sound like dry branches snapping. It crawled on all fours, but its movements were fluid and possibly fast, more like a spider than any mammal I'd ever seen. It skittered across the floor, its long fingers tipped with what looked like dirty, broken claws scratching against the hardwood. It moved with a terrifying purpose, sniffing the air, its head darting from side to side. It was hunting, and I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone that it was hunting for me. My mind was screaming at me to run, to get back upstairs to Alex, but my legs wouldn't obey. The creature paused directly below the staircase, its head tilting back as if it sensed me. It let out a low, guttural sound, a mix between a growl and a dry, rasping cough, and then it spoke. In a voice that was a perfect, chilling imitation of Alex's dad, it whispered, "Rachel, is that you, sweetheart? Come on down, don't be shy." The sound of my name and that stolen voice shattered my paralysis. I scrambled backward up the stairs, trying to be silent, but my foot slipped, and I let out a small, terrified gasp. The thing below went silent. Then I heard it, a rapid, frantic scratching sound, coming straight for the stairs. I didn't look back. I flew up the remaining steps, burst into Alex's room, and slammed the door shut, fumbling with the lock. Alex jumped up, startled. "Rachel, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't form words. I just pointed at the door, my body trembling uncontrollably. He looked confused, but my sheer terror must have convinced him. He pushed his heavy dresser in front of the door just as something slammed against it from the other side. The impact shook the entire frame. It wasn't a human punch or kick. It was a heavy, deadweight thud, followed by the sound of splintering wood. Then came the scratching, frenzied and desperate, all over the door, and the voice. It started mimicking Alex's mom. "Alex, honey, let us in. Something's wrong with your father." Then it switched to Alex's voice. "Rachel, babe, open the door, it's me." And out here, we huddled in the corner of the room, listening to the cacophony of stolen voices, each one a perfect mimicry, pleading, crying, and then growling with frustration. It was trying to lure us out, to trick us. We stayed like that for what felt like an eternity, the sounds from behind the door shifting and changing. Sometimes it would go quiet and we'd hold our breath, praying it was gone. Then the scratching would start again, more furious than before. At one point, we heard a faint whimpering sound, like a small lost animal. It was the most unnerving sound of all because it felt like a trap, a calculated attempt to play on our sympathies. We didn't fall for it. Alex had his phone, and with shaking hands, he managed to call the police, whispering our location and what was happening. He didn't say it was a monster. He just said someone was trying to break into the room and they weren't human. The wait for the police was the longest 20 minutes of my life. The creature outside seemed to know they were coming. The noises grew more frantic, the banging more violent. It sounded like it was trying to tear the door from its hinges. Then, just as we heard the distant wail of sirens, everything stopped. The scratching, the banging, the voices, all of it just ceased. The silence that followed was somehow more terrifying than the noise. We stayed pressed against the far wall, not daring to move until we heard the police shouting from downstairs. When they finally got to us, they had to break down what was left of the bedroom door. The hallway was a wreck. The door was covered in deep, long scratches, and the wood around the lock was completely splintered. But there was no sign of anyone or anything. They searched the entire house, top to bottom. The living room was untouched, except for the front door, which was wide open, letting the cold night air in. There were strange, muddy tracks leading out into the backyard, but they were distorted, not quite animal, not quite human. They vanished at the edge of the woods behind the house. Alex's parents came home the next day to a police investigation and 2 traumatized kids. We tried to explain what we saw, what we heard. They believed we'd been targeted by a very disturbed intruder, but Alex and I knew better. He'd grown up hearing local legends, old stories from the nearby reservation about shapeshifters, beings that could steal a person's voice, their appearance. They were called Skinwalkers. We never told his parents the full truth. How could we? How do you tell someone that a creature from a nightmare tried to hunt you in their own home? I never stayed the night at Alex's house again. We eventually broke up, not because we stopped caring, but because we could never look at each other without seeing the fear in our eyes, without remembering that night. Sometimes when I'm alone in the quiet, I can still hear it. That dry, rasping cough. That perfect imitation of a familiar voice. And I know, deep down, that it's still out there, walking in someone else's skin, waiting in the dark. So if you ever hear a strange noise downstairs, or a voice that sounds just a little bit off, stay in your room, lock the door, and pray it doesn't know your name. Thanks for listening, and please be careful out there. I'm Jackie, and I work the late shift at a dusty, forgotten motel just off the interstate. My shift ends at 2 a.m. when the world is quiet, and the only company I have is the humming engine of my old car. The drive home is usually peaceful, a 10-mile stretch of empty desert highway under a blanket of stars. But one night, the peacefulness was shattered by a sound I'll never forget. It started about 5 miles from home. A low, guttural growl seemed to vibrate through the car itself. I slowed down, peering into the darkness, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I thought maybe I'd hit an animal, a coyote or a deer. I pulled over, my heart thumping against my ribs. I got out, my phone's flashlight cutting a nervous beam through the pitch black. The road was empty, there was nothing there. Confused, I got back in the car, dismissed it as my tired mind playing tricks, and started driving again. That's when I saw it in my rearview mirror. A figure, impossibly tall and gaunt, was standing in the exact spot where I had just stopped. It was just a silhouette against the distant glow of the motel sign, but it was unnervingly still. A cold dread washed over me. I pressed my foot down on the gas, my eyes darting between the road ahead and the mirror. The figure didn't move. It just watched. The next few nights were tense. I'd finished my shift, my eyes scanning the darkness outside the motel lobby. I started leaving a few minutes early, hoping to outrun whatever was out there. I kept telling myself it was just exhaustion, the desert playing with my senses. But the feeling of being watched never left me. It was a heavy, suffocating presence that clung to me all the way home. I'd lock my doors, draw my curtains, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was just outside waiting. One evening, a trucker named Earl checked in. He was a regular, a friendly guy with a booming laugh. He leaned on the counter, telling me about the strange things he'd seen on the stretch of road. He talked about shadows that moved too fast and whispers on the wind that sounded like his name. I just nodded along, trying to act unfazed, but inside, my blood ran cold. He told me to be careful, that the desert keeps secrets. That night, as I drove home, my car's radio started acting up. It crackled with static, then went silent. Suddenly, a voice came through the speakers. It was faint, distorted, but it was clear enough to make out one word: Jackie. It was my name, whispered in a dry, rasping tone that sounded like rustling leaves and cracking bones. I slammed my hand on the power button, but the voice continued, a low, mocking laugh that filled the car. I was paralyzed with fear, my car coasting as I stared at the radio in horror. Then a loud thud on the roof of my car jolted me back to reality. It sounded heavy, like something large had just landed on it. I screamed and swerved, my tires screeching on the asphalt. Another thud, this time on the trunk. I glanced at my rearview mirror and saw nothing but the empty road behind me. But then I looked up at the reflection in the mirror and I saw them. Two glowing yellow eyes staring back at me from the darkness inside my own car, reflected from the back seat. I floored it. I didn't care about the speed limit. I just needed to get home. The whispering from the radio stopped, replaced by a scratching sound. It was coming from the roof, long, deliberate scrapes, like claws dragging across the metal. I could hear it moving, shifting its weight. I was crying, begging it to leave me alone. I didn't dare look in the mirror again. I finally saw the familiar lights of my neighborhood. The scratching stopped as I turned onto my street. I pulled into my driveway, slammed the car into park, and ran. I didn't look back. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking so badly I could barely fit the key in the lock. The second the door was open, I threw myself inside and bolted it shut, collapsing against it, gasping for air. My house had never felt so safe. After a few minutes, I calmed down enough to peek through the blinds. My car sat in the driveway, looking completely normal under the street lamp. There was nothing on the roof, nothing in the back seat. Was it all in my head? Had I finally cracked from the long nights and the isolation? I wanted to believe that, I really did. The next morning, I forced myself to go outside and check my car in the daylight. I walked around it, my heart pounding. Everything looked fine. No dents, no strange marks. I let out a sigh of relief. Maybe I had imagined it, but then I saw them. On the dusty roof of my car, just above the driver's side, were 3 long, deep scratches gouged into the paint. They were parallel and far too deep and wide to have been made by any animal I knew, but that wasn't the worst part. Lying on the ground, right next to my driver's side door, was a small object. I bent down to pick it up. It was a worn, leather-bound keychain, the kind the motel gives out with every room key. It was the exact keychain I had given to Earl, the trucker, the night before. His room key, number 117, was still attached to it. I never went back to the motel. I packed a bag that day and left town, and I haven't looked back since. Sometimes late at night when the world is quiet, I can still hear it. That dry, rasping whisper carried on the wind, calling my name. And I know that somewhere out there in the vast, dark desert, it's still watching. And it's still waiting. Thanks for listening, and please be careful on those lonely roads. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next story. The static hiss of the radio was the only thing keeping me company as the storm raged outside my ranger station. Rain hammered against the windows like a frantic fist, and the wind howled through the pines, a low, mournful sound that always set my teeth on edge. It was just past midnight when the emergency beacon sputtered to life. A sharp, insistent beep that cut through the storm's fury. I grabbed the receiver. The signal was weak, but the coordinates were clear enough. A hiker, probably caught out by the sudden squall. Deep in the Blackwood sector. I pulled on my gear, the heavy rain slicker crackling in the quiet of the station. The woods at night are a different world, and a storm like this just makes them more alien. The coordinates placed the beacon near Sentinel Ridge, a tricky area even in broad daylight. As I drove the truck as far as the trail would allow, the rain turned into a torrential downpour. I had to leave the vehicle and proceed on foot. The wind whipped through the trees, making them groan and sway like ancient giants. Flashlight beam cutting through the inky blackness, I checked the GPS. The beacon was supposed to be just a quarter mile ahead. But as I trudged on, my boots sinking into the mud, something felt wrong. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of wet earth and something else. Something vaguely sweet and rotten, like old meat left too long in the sun. I paused, listening over the roar of the wind. Nothing, just the storm. I checked the GPS again. My heart skipped a beat. The coordinates had moved. Not by much, just a few hundred yards, but they'd shifted deeper into the forest, away from the trail. A glitch? Maybe the storm was interfering with the signal. I pushed on, my unease growing with every step. The trees here were older, their branches tangled together, blocking out what little light there was. It felt like I was walking into a cave made of wood and leaves. Then I heard it. A faint sound carried on the wind. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a voice, a soft, crooning whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was a sound that didn't belong in a storm, a sound that felt ancient and wrong. I stopped dead, my light sweeping through the trees. Nothing. Just shadows dancing in the gale. I shook my head, blaming the wind, the exhaustion. I checked the GPS a third time. The beacon had moved again. This time, a full half-mile farther into the wilderness, toward the treacherous ravines of the Whisperwind Canyons. No hiker, no matter how disoriented, would be moving that fast in this terrain, in this weather. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a rescue. It was a lure. The whispered voice returned, clearer this time. It was mimicking a woman's voice, soft and pleading. "Help me," it cooed, the sound seeming to slither right into my ear. So cold. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to turn back, to run back to the station and lock the door. But the beacon was my responsibility. What if it was a real person, their device malfunctioning? I couldn't just abandon them. With my heart pounding against my ribs, I pushed forward, my hand resting on the handle of the flare gun at my hip. The air grew colder, an unnatural chill that had nothing to do with the rain. Frost began to spiderweb across the leaves on the ground, even in the middle of the storm. The rotten sweet smell was overpowering now. I rounded a massive, gnarled oak, and my flashlight beam fell on something that made me freeze. Antlers. A massive rack of deer antlers, bleached white, lashed to a crude skeleton pole of sticks and vines. Below it, the ground was disturbed, the mud churned up. And there, half buried in the muck, was the emergency beacon. It was still blinking, its little red light a lonely pulse in the suffocating dark. But it was what was next to it that made my breath catch in my throat. A tattered piece of a hiking jacket, the same brand the Park Service issued to its rangers. My partner Evans had been wearing one just like it when he vanished without a trace in the same sector last winter. The official report said he was lost to the elements, but we all knew something else had happened. The whispering started again, right behind me. So hungry. It wasn't a woman's voice anymore. It was deep, guttural, a sound scraped from a dry throat. I didn't turn around. I didn't dare. I could feel its presence, a vast, cold emptiness that sucked the warmth from the air. I could hear the faint click-clack of what sounded like hooves on stone, a sound that was impossible in the soft mud. I could smell the decay, the scent of the grave, of things that should have stayed buried. Slowly, I began to back away, my flashlight beam still fixed on the blinking beacon. The clicking followed, keeping pace with me. The whispering changed, morphing into a perfect imitation of Evans's voice. "Don't leave me out here, man. It's so dark." My stomach churned. It knew. It was using my memories, my fears, against me. It was playing with me. I fumbled for the flare gun, my fingers numb with cold and terror. The clicking stopped. The silence was somehow worse than the storm, worse than the whispers. The air was dead still. I could feel its gaze on my back, cold and ancient and utterly devoid of anything but hunger. I knew if I turned, I would see it. The tall, emaciated frame. The skull-like head crowned with antlers. The eyes that burned like dying embers. The thing the old stories warned about. I raised the flare gun, my hand shaking violently. I didn't aim at the sound. I aimed straight up into the churning black sky. I pulled the trigger. A brilliant red star shot upward, momentarily illuminating the forest in a hellish crimson light. In that split second of searing brightness, I saw its shadow. Impossibly tall, impossibly thin, stretched across the trees in a grotesque parody of a man. It was right there. I didn't wait for the flare to die. I turned and ran. I didn't look back. I crashed through the undergrowth, branches tearing at my face and clothes. The storm's fury was a comfort now, its chaos a shield. Behind me, I heard a shriek of rage, a sound that was not human, not animal, a sound that tore through the fabric of the night and promised a slow, agonizing end. It was the sound of a hunger that had been denied its meal. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out, stumbling back to the trail and eventually the truck. I drove away from the Blackwood sector and didn't stop until the sun began to rise, painting the horizon in shades of gray and pink. I never filed a report about the shifting beacon. Who would believe me? They'd say it was the storm, or a faulty GPS, or a mind playing tricks on itself in the dark. But I know what I heard. I know what I saw in that flash of red light. Sometimes on cold, windy nights, I can still hear that whisper on the edge of the wind. I can still smell the rot and the sweet decay. The forest has its secrets, and some are best left undisturbed. The beacon wasn't a call for help. It was a dinner bell, and tonight I was the one who almost answered. Thanks for watching, and if you're ever lost in the woods, pray it's only the storm you have to worry about. Follow for more stories from the shadows. Have you ever had one of those nights where everything just feels off? Like the air is thick and heavy and a strange silence blankets everything? That's how my Grub Eats delivery shift started last Tuesday. I thought it was just another late night run, a quick $50 to deliver a single meal to the absolute edge of town. I wish I'd just stayed home. The order came in around 11 p.m. One customer, one meal, headed to a place called Blackwood Manor out on Old Mill Road. The name itself should have been a red flag, right? It sounded like something out of a gothic novel. But the pay was good, and I figured it was just some rich eccentric who wanted their late-night sushi. The drive out was strange. The further I got from the city lights, the darker it became. My GPS started glitching, the friendly voice cutting in and out, replaced by static. Streetlights became fewer and farther between until it was just my headlights cutting through a tunnel of pitch-black woods. The trees here were different, gnarled, twisted things that seemed to lean over the road, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching for my car. I got this prickly feeling on the back of my neck, that classic "I'm being watched" sensation. I told myself it was just my imagination fueled by too many true crime podcasts. Finally, my GPS announced, "You have arrived." I pulled up to a massive wrought iron gate. Beyond it, a long winding driveway led to a dark, sprawling house that looked more like a mausoleum than a home. It was completely dark, not a single light on inside. I took a deep breath, grabbed the food bag, and punched the code the customer had sent into the keypad. The gates groaned open with a sound like a dying beast. Driving up the driveway, my headlights swept across the front of the house. That's when I saw the porch swing. It was moving back and forth, slowly, rhythmically, but there was no wind. Not a single leaf was stirring. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I parked the car, my hand hovering over the gear shift. Every instinct screaming at me to just reverse and get out of there. But I needed the money, and I was already here. I got out of the car. The silence was deafening. No crickets, no distant traffic, just nothing. It was unnatural. As I walked towards the porch, the instructions on the app updated. Leave on the porch. Do not ring the bell. Do not knock. Fine by me. The less interaction, the better. I set the bag down next to the front door, my eyes darting around nervously. The porch swing was still now. I snapped a quick photo for the app to prove the delivery was complete and practically sprinted back to my car. I didn't even wait for the gates to fully close behind me before I floored it, peeling out onto Old Mill Road. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I drove for what felt like an eternity, my eyes glued to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something chasing me. When the first city lights came back into view, I finally let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The rest of the night was blessedly normal. I finished my shift, went home, and collapsed into bed, eager to forget the whole creepy experience. The next morning, I woke up to a notification from Grab Eats. It was a message from the customer from Blackwood Manor. My stomach dropped. I was expecting a complaint, maybe about the food being cold, but the message wasn't a complaint. It was just one sentence. I saw you on my porch camera. You arrived twice. I stared at the message, my blood turning to ice. What did that even mean? I replied immediately, I'm sorry, I don't understand. I only came once to drop off your order. I waited, my anxiety spiking with every passing second. A few minutes later, a new message popped up. It was a video file. My hand was trembling as I tapped to open it. The video was from a porch camera, the timestamp showing the exact time I had arrived. The quality was grainy, black, and white. I watched myself walk up the steps, place the bag down, and take the picture. Everything looked normal. I started to relax, thinking it was just some weird prank. But then, as I watched myself run back to the car and drive away, the video kept playing. About 30 seconds after my car disappeared down the driveway, the front door of the house creaked open. A tall, shadowy figure stepped out. It was too dark to make out any details, but it was unnaturally thin, its limbs long and jointed at odd angles. It moved to the spot where I had left the food bag, picked it up, and then it turned its head directly toward the camera. Then the truly impossible part happened. As the figure stood there, it began to change. It hunched over, its shape shifting and contorting. It was like watching a clay model being violently reshaped. Its form seemed to collapse in on itself and then reform, stretching and morphing until it looked exactly like me. It was wearing my clothes, had my hair, my build. It was a perfect, horrifying duplicate. This other me, this thing, then turned and walked calmly back to the driveway, right into the glare of a new set of headlights. A car, identical to mine, was pulling up. The video showed this imposter version of me getting into the driver's seat of the identical car and driving away, just as I had done minutes before. The video ended. I dropped my phone. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't a prank. The porch camera caught me arriving twice. First, the real me delivering the food. Then a second car, a second me, arriving just as I left. But that second me, it came out of the house. It had been waiting inside. My mind reeled, trying to process what I had seen. The glitching GPS, the unnatural silence, the feeling of being watched. It all clicked into place in the most terrifying way imaginable. I wasn't just delivering food to a creepy house. I was the bait. I frantically searched online for Blackwood Manor, Old Mill Road, creature that mimics people. The results that came back made my skin crawl. Local legends, forum posts, whispers of a thing that lives in those woods. They called it a Skinwalker. A creature that can steal your appearance, your voice, your very identity. The story said it lures people to isolated places, studies them, and then creates a perfect copy to send back out into the world. But the original is never seen again. I sat there, frozen in my apartment, staring at my own reflection in the dark screen of my phone. Was it really my reflection? The customer's message wasn't a complaint, it was a warning. I saw you on my porch camera. You arrived twice. They saw me leave, and then they saw the thing that looked like me arrive. They knew what was in their house. Maybe they were trapped too. Maybe they were trying to warn the next person. I haven't been able to sleep since. Every time I look in the mirror, I see the creature from the video. Every creak of my apartment building sounds like footsteps outside my door. I keep thinking about that copy. Where is it? What is it doing? Is it looking for me? Is it trying to replace me? The most chilling thought of all is this. The legend says the Skinwalker needs to get close to you to copy you. When I was on that porch, feeling like I was being watched, was it just watching, or was it close enough to touch? I quit Grub Eats that day. I don't drive at night anymore. I stay away from the edge of town, away from the woods. But I can't shake the feeling that a part of that night followed me home. Sometimes I get calls from a block number. When I answer, all I hear is static, and underneath it, a faint rhythmic sound. Like a porch swing moving back and forth, in a place with no wind. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've had a creepy experience of your own, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe for more spooky stories. Stay safe out there. My name is Sophia, and what happened on that solo hike in the Texas Hill Country still keeps me up at night. I used to think the scariest things out there were rattlesnakes or getting lost. I was wrong, so wrong. The stories my abuela told me, the ones I always dismissed as old world superstitions, they're real. And one of them found me. It started subtly. I was about 5 miles deep into a trail I knew well, surrounded by the familiar scent of cedar and sun-baked earth. The air was still, almost unnaturally so. That's when I heard it, a whistle, not a bird, not a person. It was a tune, a simple, haunting melody that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I stopped, scanning the dense juniper trees and rocky outcrops. Nothing. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Only the dry rustle of leaves answered. I shook it off, telling myself it was just the wind playing tricks, and pushed on. But the whistling continued, always just at the edge of my hearing, following me. An icy dread started to prickle at the back of my neck. An hour later, the sun began to dip below the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I picked up my pace, wanting to be back at my car before dark. That's when I saw the coyote. It was standing in the middle of the path, maybe 50 yards ahead, but something was wrong. It was too big, its limbs too long and gangly, and its eyes, they weren't the eyes of an animal. They were intelligent, watching me with a chilling intensity that felt almost human. It just stood there, completely still, its head cocked to one side. The whistling had stopped. Now there was only silence. My heart hammered against my ribs. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. The coyote, or whatever it was, took a step forward. Its movement was jerky and natural, like a marionette being pulled by unseen strings. Then it opened its mouth, and the sound that came out wasn't a howl or a yip. It was a voice. My voice. It whispered my name, Sophia. The sound was distorted, raspy, like my own voice being played through a broken speaker, but it was unmistakably mine. That broke the spell. I turned and ran. I didn't look back. I just fled, branches whipping at my face, my lungs burning. I could hear it behind me, its steps unnaturally heavy, keeping pace with me effortlessly. It wasn't running like a coyote. It sounded bipedal, like a person running on all fours. I heard it laugh, a dry, rattling sound that echoed through the trees. It was toying with me. It could have caught me at any moment, but it was enjoying the chase. Then I heard another sound, a woman crying for help. The voice was faint, but it sounded desperate. "Help me, please, I'm hurt." It seemed to be coming from just off the trail. For a split second, I hesitated. What if someone was genuinely in trouble? But then I heard it again, and this time I recognized the voice. It was my mother's. My mother, who was hundreds of miles away in El Paso. The creature was mimicking her voice perfectly. A wave of pure terror washed over me. This thing wasn't just a predator. It was intelligent, cruel, and it knew things it shouldn't. I ignored the pleas and pushed myself harder, fueled by adrenaline and sheer panic. I could see the trailhead parking lot coming into view, the familiar glint of my car's windshield, a beacon of hope. The sounds behind me grew more frantic. It mimicked my father's stern command to stop, then my abuela's gentle cooing. Each voice was a perfect replica, a psychological weapon designed to break me. I just kept running, tears streaming down my face, my breath coming in ragged sobs. I finally burst out of the trees and into the gravel lot. I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking so badly I could barely fit the key in the lock. The door clicked open, and I threw myself inside, slamming it shut and locking it instantly. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. I jammed the key in the ignition, the engine roaring to life. As I sped away, leaving a cloud of dust, I glanced at the edge of the woods. Standing just within the shadows was a tall, gaunt figure. It was too dark to see clearly, but I could feel its gaze on me, cold and ancient. It slowly raised a long, thin arm and waved. I drove all night, not stopping until the sun came up and I was in a different county. I never went back. I sold my hiking gear. I don't go into the woods anymore. Some nights when the wind blows just right, I think I can hear a faint whistling outside my window. My abuela used to say that a skinwalker is a cursed being that has lost its humanity. It can wear the skins of animals, and it can steal the voices of people. It feeds on fear. I don't know what I saw that day in the Texas hills, but I know it wasn't a coyote. And I know it wanted more than just my life. It wanted my voice, my memories, my very soul. Be careful when you're out there alone. You never know who or what might be watching you from the trees, waiting to call your name. Thanks for listening. If you have your own stories, share them in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Stay safe out there. The hum of the generator was the only thing that felt real. Down here, 1,000 feet beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, reality had a way of warping. We were a team of 4 glaciologists charting the subglacial lakes, a world untouched for millennia. For weeks, it was the same routine. Drill, deploy the submersible drone, analyze data, and repeat. Monotonous, but safe. Then the drone sonar picked up an anomaly. Not a cavern, not a fissure, but a perfectly circular tunnel, 10 feet in diameter, burrowing horizontally through the ancient ice. Dr. Iris Thorne, our lead, was captivated. "This isn't natural," he kept muttering, eyes glued to the monitor. "Geothermal vents don't create something this uniform. It's like it was bored by a machine." But the walls weren't rough-hewn. They were smooth, polished like glass. The drone's camera feed showed a surface so flawless it reflected the submersible sights with perfect clarity. It was as if something had melted its way through, something impossibly precise. Against my better judgment, Aris decided we needed a closer look. Protocol was clear. We observe, we don't interact. But the pull of discovery was too strong for him. We suited up, descending through the borehole into the frigid, pressurized water of the subglacial lake. The water was so clear, it felt like flying through a void. We swam towards the tunnel's entrance. Up close, it was even more unnerving. The ice wasn't just melted. It was grooved with faint, almost invisible lines spiraling down its length. Like a rifle barrel, but impossibly large. Aris and I entered first, our powerful headlamps cutting through the darkness. Our other 2 team members, Lena and Ben, stayed at the entrance, maintaining our comms and safety line. The silence inside the tunnel was absolute, broken only by the sound of our own breathing. The air, trapped in the ice for eons, felt heavy, ancient. My unease grew with every kick of my fins. The tunnel was long, far longer than the sonar could penetrate. It just went on, a perfect glassy tube into the heart of the continent. "Look at this," Aris said, his voice crackling over the comms. He pointed his light at the wall. Embedded deep within the ice, perfectly preserved, were fossils, not a fish or krill. They were large bones, skeletal remains of creatures we couldn't identify. Some looked vaguely like giant deer, but with elongated limbs and rib cages that were unnaturally distended. They weren't scattered randomly. They were arranged almost deliberately along the tunnel walls like macabre decorations. A shiver, colder than the water, traced its way down my spine. This wasn't a geological feature. This was a lair, or worse, a pantry. I grabbed Aris's arm. "We need to go, now." He was mesmerized, tracing the outline of a grotesquely large skull with his gloved finger. "Incredible," he breathed. "The evolutionary pressures down here must be immense." That's when our headlamps flickered, both of them at the same time. For a heart-stopping second, we were plunged into total blackness. When they came back on, something was different. A sound. A low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the water, through the very ice around us. It wasn't mechanical. It was organic, a deep, guttural thrumming. "Lena, Ben, do you copy?" I yelled into my cum. Static. Only static. The hum grew louder, closer. It was coming from deeper within the tunnel. "Aris, we have to go." I pulled him, and this time he didn't resist. We turned and began swimming frantically back towards the entrance. The hum was right behind us now, a physical pressure against our backs. I didn't dare look back. I just focused on the distant pinprick of light that was the tunnel's mouth. Then, from the darkness ahead, a shadow detached itself from the entrance. A silhouette. It was tall, impossibly thin. Its limbs stretched to an unnatural length. It blocked our only exit. It wasn't Lena or Ben. It was too tall, too gaunt. It just floated there, motionless, a spindly, horrifying shape against the faint blue glow of the lake beyond. The hum from behind us stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I felt trapped, caught between two unseen horrors. The figure at the entrance shifted, its long, stick-like arm reaching out slowly, deliberately. Iris let out a choked gasp. Ben's scream, high and terrified, cut short by a sickening crunch. Then Lena, "It's got him." Oh God, its arms are so long. Her transmission ended in a wet, gurgling sound, and then silence. The silhouette in front of us tilted its head. It was as if it was listening, savoring the sounds of its hunt. I knew then that we were not explorers who had found the tunnel. We were just food that had wandered into the larder. The thing from the deep was behind us, and its sibling, or its other end, was in front. Ernest panicked. He pushed off me, swimming straight towards the figure, maybe thinking he could get past it. The silhouette didn't move to grab him. It simply unfolded. Its torso seemed to split open, revealing not a mouth, but a hollow black void. Ernest swam right into it. There was no struggle, no sound. He just vanished into the darkness. The void sealed shut, and the silhouette was whole again. I was frozen, my lungs burning, my mind screaming. The hum started again, this time from the figure in front of me. It began to drift closer, its movements unnervingly graceful. Its limbs were like black ice, its form barely distinguishable from the shadows. I could see its head now, a long, narrow skull like the fossils in the wall, with no discernible features except for two faint, glowing points of light where eyes should be. They were cold, ancient, and utterly devoid of anything but hunger. My training kicked in, a primal instinct for survival overriding the sheer terror, my emergency flare. My hand shook as I fumbled for it. I pulled the pin, and a blinding magnesium white light erupted, illuminating the tunnel. In that searing flash, I saw it clearly. It wasn't a creature. It was a nightmare given form. Its skin was pale and translucent, stretched taut over a frame of bone that seemed too large for its body. It was so thin it looked like a sketch, a two-dimensional being impossibly existing in our three-dimensional world. Its limbs were like brittle branches, and its head was that of a starved stag, but elongated, nightmarish. A Wendigo born of ice and pressure and eternal hunger. It recoiled from the light, letting out a shriek that wasn't a sound, but a psychic blade that lanced through my mind. It was a scream of a million years of starvation, of unending cold and loneliness. The pain was immense. I squeezed my eyes shut, pushing off the wall and swimming blindly away from the thing back deeper into the tunnel. I had no choice. The entrance was death, the depths were an unknown. I swam for what felt like an eternity, the flare dying out, plunging me back into darkness. The creature's shriek echoed in my mind, but it wasn't following. The light had heard it. Or maybe it was just savoring its last meal. I'm recording this now on my suit's emergency voice log. My oxygen is low, and my light is failing. The tunnel seems endless. But a little while ago, the sonar on my suit picked up something far ahead in the deep black. Another tunnel branching off from this one, and another, and another. This isn't one tunnel. It's a network, a colony, and the low, resonant hum. It's starting again. It's coming from all directions now. They know I'm here. They're waiting. The ice is not empty. And it is so, so hungry.